Hey everybody, Zach here with Coliseum Comics. Welcome to another episode of Zach Stacks. Today I have something really fun and really special. This was recommended to me by Kevin, who is you usually see in front of the camera, and this is the life and times of Scrooge McDuck. See, look at that, beautiful. So before we start talking about the actual story, this book is very interesting from a publication standpoint and where it is today. So back when it came out, it was revolutionary. It was an Eisner Award-winning series written and drawn by Don Rosa. And now moving into the 2020s and onward, the book has had some trouble seeing publication. It has been, I guess, censored by Disney a little bit because of some of the content that was mostly just for the comics of the time. You see a lot of Silver Age books and 70s and 80s books have a lot of different things that we see now as being bad, but then it was just normal. So this book has a really interesting past and history to it, which is kind of interesting because the story is about the past and the present and how they all intertwine. But if you were interested in collecting the books, the new hardcovers are missing part of the story. So Disney actually went in and censored a couple issues or a couple parts of the issues to make them more friendly for today's world, but the story is incomplete, and unfortunately the issue that is omitted is the most important issue of the whole story. It is where everything culminates into one and you kind of learn where Scrooge, who he is as a character. So unfortunately, if you want to track down this series after I talk about it, you either have to dig for the original back issues here, or you can also just try to find an older version of a trade. But now we can talk about Scrooge. So everybody knows Scrooge McDuck. This is not DuckTales at all. It is a more grounded take on him. And this is his story and how he gets to life. So the story starts off with a little boy, that's Scrooge there in the beginning, and he is born into the Clan McDuck, this once great clan in Scotland where they had a castle. They were the pride and joy of their area. But over time, the clan not lost its way, but they lost their money, and now he'll come later. Scrooge is with his family living in Glasgow, and they are just a poor working class family, and all that Scrooge wants to do is make something of himself. So he sets up a shoe shine to make some money, and his dad has somebody go and give him an American dime and to pay him for shining his shoes. But Scrooge is so happy to get the money, he takes it and realizes that he got scammed. And from that point on, he vows to himself that he wants to be rich, but not only does he want to be rich, he wants to do it the right way, and he doesn't want to scam people, he wants to do it fair. So the whole story, you see him walking around with that first dime, and that first dime has a lot of importance. So young Scrooge decides to move off away from Scotland and go to America, go to the New World, and to try to make something of himself, because that American dream was very much alive. We are basically in the late 1800s when the story starts, and that is right when the gold rush is starting. But that comes later as well. So Scrooge, I'm going to be mixing that up a lot, but Scrooge decides to take a boat, work on a cattle boat, and make it from Scotland to America. And there, because he's got a relative that lives on the Mississippi. So he moves to America and he starts working on a steamboat. But of course, the steamboats go out of business. He ends up running into some pirates on the water, and that's a whole fun. This story's got a lot of just normal fun comic book elements, fun old story like Golden Age elements, because basically what Don Rosa did with this series was he took all the original Carl Barks Scrooge stories and he modernized them and made them all fit in one timeline. So this is how basically Scrooge his origin pieced together from all the Carl Barks stories. But anyway, once the steamboat doesn't work out, he decides that he wants to work with cattle again, and he ends up being a cattle wrangler and going out west and trying to find a new frontier. He wants to go find gold, but he gets sidetracked, and that's an element that you will constantly see in the story, is that Scrooge will go do something and he gets sidetracked and ends up starting a whole new section of his life because that is kind of how life works. You end up going to try to do something new and you start something else. So he moves there, that doesn't work out, and he wants to start being a panner and go looking for gold. That does not work out good for him. He does not know how to do it at all. He is having trouble, he's not making any money, and he's been in America for almost 5 years now, and he has basically nothing to show from it after sending his family all his money. But he finally meets this older man when they are digging for copper, and actually teaches Scrooge how to properly mine for copper. And they find out that his vein that he's on is part of the biggest copper mill in the whole West. And the way that the laws worked back then, if you were in charge of the closest piece of ore to the surface, you own the whole mill. So they run to the courthouse, they get all the legalities settled, and Scrooge is now the owner of the most successful and largest copper mill in the whole Wild West. But of course, just as that happens, he gets a telegram from his family saying that he needs to come back home to Scotland and they're about to lose the castle. So he moves all the way back to Scotland and he helps out his family. They are trying to stop another warring family, another tribe, the Whiskervilles, from trying to take over the castle that they've always wanted, the McDucks have always had. And so Scrooge, before he leaves, I forgot to mention this, gets paid $10,000 to sell the copper mill back to the people who had the original copper mill. At first he wasn't going to take the money, but as he had to go, he took it. So now he's got this bank, this check basically, that can pay off all the taxes that they owe on the castle, and his family can live. But the Whiskervilles, they challenge Scrooge to a duel, and during the duel they try to steal the bank notice from him. They end up being able to keep the castle, and he is still trying to find out how he's going to make himself. He goes to Africa and tries to look for gold and diamonds. Nothing there. He goes to Australia, and that's where he has an awakening. He's looking for gold in Australia, and he meets this kind of shaman character. He reminded me of Gateway from the X-Men, because I always think when I'm reading something for this channel, I always think of Gateway because of that nice image that Kevin made of me as Gateway. So I'm basically Gateway. So I show up in the story, and the shaman kind of tells Donald that there's this dream wall that he's looking for. Scrooge, not Donald. This dream wall that he's looking for. And they're walking and they get lost, and this big sinkhole happens, and they go in, and the shaman reads Scrooge a story that doesn't quite make sense. He thinks it's all made up, and he leaves the man, and the things just start happening, and they're walking around the outback, and he finds this man, and Scrooge is like, hey, I think that this dream thing is real. And the guy's like, yes, come, there's more to the story. And you find out that basically that dream is about Scrooge, and he is able to look through his crystal glass and sees the Northern Lights. And his whole life, Scrooge always felt like where he had been and where he was trying to make money, he was always a step behind. He was always too late. So he thinks that this is my sign, the Northern Lights. I need to go to Alaska, where they are just now finding new gold. So this was my absolute favorite issue of the whole series, and this is when Scrooge finally goes to Alaska, and he goes on this really hard trek through the wilderness. Everybody's fighting to get the gear to be able to mine for gold. Everybody's trying to find resources, and actually Scrooge has to get a loan from a loan shark to be able to fund and finance everything. And during this time is when Scrooge finds his first nugget of gold. You can see it here, and this is where everything kind of kicks off for Scrooge in his life, and he is making it big, but he's doing everything the right way. And that's what you kind of see in his heart and in his story, that he wants to do things the right way. He hates scammers. That's his biggest thing. He doesn't like people trying to get one over on him. And this is basically him doing it the right way and faking all of those people out. He finally goes back to Scotland, and he is a rich man, and his family is there, and he has changed a lot. And it is really hard for him to see how hardened Scrooge has got with the money. But in his mind, and with him growing up, all he's ever wanted was to be rich. And he doesn't care how he's turned out to be as a person because he turned rich. And that's where you start to see his character changing a lot. I don't want to give too much more on what happens in the climax of the story. Just know that he kind of has a come to life, back to life moment. He moves him and his sisters back to America, and they move to him, and they make a whole new town and basically a mega city. And his sisters go along with him, but they're not really liking this new Scrooge, but they want to come to America, and they want to see cowboys, and they want to see all the stuff that they've seen in media, which I thought was really funny. And then it all kind of culminates in this. This is the second to last issue, issue 11. This is the issue that is not able to be collected in the new editions. And this is where you realize that Scrooge has 100% lost his way. He is scamming people, and he is trying to make a buck however he can by any means necessary. And his sisters, they leave him. His one sister marries another person. They end up having Donald. So that's why I keep saying Donald, because he's kind of foreshadowed throughout the whole story, just because everybody knows who Donald Duck is. So you can kind of see him come to play, and when he's a little kid and he comes and he gives Scrooge a nice kick in the butt. And it all culminates, the final issue is a Christmas Day issue, which is very fitting. Scrooge McDuck's first appearance was a Christmas Day issue, and obviously there's a lot of draw from Ebenezer Scrooge and Christmas Carol. And this is where an old, tired Scrooge McDuck contacts Donald, who was with his nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, which you would know from DuckTales how that relationship is such a tight-knit relationship. But again, this is not DuckTales. And that's where Scrooge has his last hurrah. He's old, he's tired, and the Beagle Boys, who are the pirates from all the way in issue 2, try to come and take this fortune that he has amassed throughout the years. He's got 10 foot of gold in his little safe thing that he still likes to swim in and dive, but at this point he just sits in his chair in the dark and basically doesn't like his life. But Donald, along with his nephews, kind of help save Scrooge's collection and bring him back to the person that he is. It kind of brings him back to, I wanted to do this the right way. I want to have this money that I can pass on to my nephews and my family, and I want to take them on these adventures that I had, and I want to show them an adventure, because at this point, nobody even believes that Scrooge was able to do all this. They think that he was just a nepotism baby that came from this clan and had all this money in this castle and came to America and made it even bigger. But that is not the case at all. He went on all these adventures and had all these different lives that he lived. And this story was so interesting because it's basically taking all those original stories, all these lives that Scrooge has lived, and put it into one, made it his full character, and it was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. It's a full story. It's dense. It is not a quick read, but it is a good read. It is complex, especially for the way it reads, because it does read like a golden age Disney comic. A lot of the dialogue, it's fun, and there's cartoon logic, and that's like why I love comics so much. So I definitely recommend this series if you have not checked it out. It is called The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck. You can find it in back issues if you want to get the complete story, or older editions of a trade. I really hope you guys check it out, and please subscribe if you want to see more. Give me recommendations on other stuff to read for Zach Sachs, and I will see you again.